This episode was co-produced with Startup Days, the leading startup conference in Switzerland. Swisspreneurs' goal is to advance entrepreneurship in Switzerland, so we've partnered up with Startup Days to produce 5 episodes with key Swiss ecosystem players. If you'd like to see them up close and personal, get your ticket for Startup Days 2022, taking place on May 19th in Bern. Visit startupdays.ch. Together, we make Switzerland more startup.
Even as as a youngster, I got really interested in politics because I somehow discovered that that's the place where we actually, as a society, decide where we want to head to, what we want.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Gerhard, very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure for me today to talk about entrepreneurship. It's a thing I'm quite enthusiastic about.
Absolutely. We're going to talk all about that. You're actually a national councillor of the Swiss Parliament, but also the co-founder of Liip, a Swiss digital agency. So you combine both the political, but also, of course, the entrepreneurial aspect of life, of business. And I want to start off with the first question. Was it actually always your dream to become a politician yourself?
I guess so. I never thought I'd really be able to join the Swiss Parliament. I mean, that's a high risk and a high, I'd say a high at stake game you want to play. So I never really thought I would make it. But yeah, I thought about it because even as as a youngster, I got really interested in politics because I somehow discovered that that's the place where we actually, as a society, decide where we want to head to, what we want actually, because that's not only done by companies, or should not only be decided by companies or individuals, but as a democracy, as a society. So I was really, for a long time, I guess, somehow attracted by policy. Even though I have to admit, I first had a really important focus on building that company. It somehow took most of my energy, beside, of course, the family. I always spent a lot of time with my kids, even though I was founding and mounting this company. But yes, long story short, I was always interested in politics, but I would never have thought that I would really made it into the Swiss Parliament, which is a huge privilege and awesome, actually.
So that was then a very pleasant surprise, so to speak. You mentioned that you were balancing also, you're building your company, and there now you also have to balance your entrepreneurial activities and your political activities. Is that sometimes a tough trade-off to make?
Every day, I really, and it's a bit frustrating, I have to admit, because that was something that was always really important to me, to show others that it is possible to be entrepreneur, to be engaged, to be committed to a company like Liip, which today employs more than 200 people all over Switzerland in 6 locations. So that's a huge success, even though we didn't anticipate that. Again, I would never have thought that I'd actually do something like that. But anyway, all over these, I'd say almost 20 years, I was active as entrepreneur. The thing that was really important to me was to show that it's also okay to have spare time during the week. I never worked 100% because the moment my kids were born, I was always also at home, even though this company, beside me also grew up. So, and I somehow, I'd say, figured out a way to do that. It was possible, like work and like family and private life. So that was really, really possible. But nowadays it really got slightly more difficult because the politics is, it's extremely intense. of course I can decide not to do things, but very often it's too attractive because the things are too important, and I have here some cards that I can play that I would be a bit stupid if I wouldn't profit from that. But I have to admit, it's really hard for me to do these three things at the same time. I mean, family, company, or I'd say even companies, because it's not only Liip that's out there. I also started another company, and then the cultural startup. Maybe we're going to talk about that. And I'm also board member here and member of another committee there. So it's a lot, and I can't lie. It's really tough. But nevertheless, I try to do it as good as it gets, but it's really tough. I have to, and it's a bit frustrating to show that that's not how it was in the past, especially for my kids. But we're always negotiating, and I'm still there when I really can.
So it sounds like a very intense, but still a good balance every now and then.
I mean, I'm really tough in cutting and separating contexts. In the evening, I don't work. I just don't, because at some point I have to cut and I have to be there for my family. Okay, when I have things in the evening, and that's quite often also the case, so if I have some event or something, I'm not even here. But if I'm at home, I just don't work in the evening. I just don't, because everyone can always work, but I just don't, because when I'm here, I'm here. So not only from my family, but also for myself, I have to have these periods where I'm resting and exploring, actually looking at series, documentaries, doing nothing. That's important, because Absolutely. If you want to have ideas, you have to just do nothing from time to time. And I'm really strict about that. And that works quite well.
Sounds like a great tip that we can all apply a bit more to our daily lives, I guess.
I have to, because it wouldn't work otherwise.
Right. So if we talk about the political agenda and the role of startups, are we as startups, the startup ecosystem, even relevant when it comes to the political daily business? What's your experience?
I'd say so, because I mean the word startup is something really positively annotated. So people like to use this word. Even our Bundesrat Maurer always talks about the startups. So that's something that's really often used as something positive, as something that's important to society, important also for economy, because that's where new things happen, where things are explored and done. So I'd say there's people want to make it happen to startups, that they can evolve. I'd say over all parties. There's no party saying that's a bad thing, we shouldn't help them. So that's not a thing you can actually defend. And there's even a parliamentary group. I'm one of the founders of the group for startups, where we meet, where we exchange, and where we also prepare from time to time some political things or how we call them, objects like motions or postulates or interpellations, the tools we have, so we can make things happen in order to improve the situation for startups. Or I'd say, of course, companies, because at the end of the day, what is a startup? Because there's no such thing as a clear definition of what a startup is. Or if there would be, I guess they're not the same for everyone. I have my definition, but it's not probably not the case or the same definition like others use. But in general, I think the political burn is very open to make to have a good ecosystem for new companies, for startups, because that's something that's interesting for I think the whole society.
And on that level, what are the top 2 to 3 points that are on the political agenda that are relevant for startups, or where you want to change or improve things for startups right now?
Yeah, I mean, there, of course, you're going to get different answers. Because I'd say there's the definition of the startup, fast growing, global reach, and unicorn startup definition, so the ones that conquer the world. And I have to admit that's not the definition I'm really so attached to, because that's a thing I don't really believe in. I don't believe in unicorn economy, because if you have, at the end of the day, a bunch of companies that are so big that dominate so much of the markets, that's not the thing I personally I'm committed to improve, because I think the situation for these kinds of companies is good enough, and it's not, like I said, something I'd be so fan of. But don't get me wrong, I don't have no big issue if that happens, if a company goes down that road. Why am I saying that? I say that because I guess there you're gonna see that not every politician is gonna defend the same things when they talk about startups. What I am talking about is more this ecosystem of a lot of companies that, as a swarm, contribute to, let's say, a better world, and not especially for a better wallet. Do you see? So and there you're
Absolutely.
going to find out that even though we as politicians are all in favor of startups, what does that mean politically? So for me personally, what I'm really interested in is what's the ecosystem for small to medium-sized companies, because I think they're the most important for positive impact on society. Because the moment companies get too big, you have to deal with the size of them. And that's another thing you might not even want. So to be a bit more specific, I'd say there's one thing I'm really interested in, and it's, I'd say, not even on the agenda right now, because right now we often, or I'd say that's mainstream, you create a company and you get in some sort of shareholder dynamic at some point, and at the end of the day you see that what's the most important at the end of the day, it's going to be the share value, it's going to be benefit, it's going to be about profit. And I'm personally more interested in the next evolutionary step, because I think companies should not be committed to money only, but a broader thing. So maybe you know this term Verantwortungseigentum. That's a new, I'd say, movement emerging from Germany, where you say the company is owned by its purpose and not by money, by capital, and that's something different. And I'm really interested in evolving this. I think that's going to be necessary for let's say an upgrade for economy, because we have to upgrade our economy. We're going to maybe talk more about this, because at the end of the day, economy can be incredibly positive and incredibly destructive. And I think the destructive part we're going to have to get rid of. And I think it's tied to the way companies are owned, or are sold, bought. And I think we have to talk about who's actually owning what. And I think purposes should own companies, not wallets. But that's a rather meta discussion. At least there's a term for that. Like I said, this purpose organizations, or Verantwortungseigentum. And I guess at some point we should think of a new structure, legal structure, that could be that could represent this kind of company. But I was a bit long, and I hope not too
No, that's great.
fantastic.
I mean,
I hope you get my point.
you want to focus more on impact that a company, that entrepreneurs can have, instead of the pure profit focus or making money fast and having huge exits. I think, yeah, I totally get that. And if we talk about the timing, why should we actually act now? Why should we think about that setup, that change right now? Why is this so important from your perspective? Because I can assume there are plenty of very big challenges that we have to solve in the bigger picture.
Exactly. I mean, look at the past century. I mean, it's incredible what our capitalistic economic system achieved. I mean, that's awesome. So many people can live on the planet and have people can have a good life. We reduced poverty so much. So many more people have access to knowledge, to communication, to clean water, etc. So the contribution we have been able to accomplish to society, to humankind in the past century was really incredible. The downside, I mean, there's no surprise. We have a planet that is basically dying, and it just won't work this way anymore. So what did we do wrong? And that's not to blame anyone, because it's just society who messed up on that part. We messed up with the planet, even though we've done awesome things. And I think that's why we need to be more holistic. We can't think that shareholder value is gonna just do the stuff. People thought that, or really prominent economists thought that, and propagated that shareholder value is gonna deal with that. The problem was we weren't able to get a price ticket on the commons, like air, water, earth. I mean, there's no price for that. And what happened in your economic activity? You could just use it, waste it, sell it, without having to be there for all the consequences. And that's a huge bug we need to fix. This is why I think we have to integrate impact on it in a holistic perspective. Money is still important, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But money alone isn't enough. We have to deal with the problem with the commons. And now, maybe I'm going to stop here, because you're going to have other questions, because it's a huge topic. But I think, yes, we have to upgrade capitalism.
And then, of course, the follow-up question arises, like, how can we actually then focus on the impact instead of a pure financial metric? How, like, what should we measure, or how could we get there from an economic, from a business system?
Yeah. So I think there's several answers to that, and I'm not having all of the answers, of course, because it's a huge question. But I'd say that there are like several ways to deal with that. First, politics. Politics, for a while now, knows that we actually should give a price tag to things like water, clean air, etc. But as you know, and that's basically the same all over the world, it's really, really hard, because people don't want that. Even though they know we should do that, it's really hard to convince. You know, we lost, or I'd say the parliament lost a vote last year with this CO2 bill. And so apparently it seems to be hard to give a price tag on the commons. That's a tragedy of the commons. So even though we know that since decades that we should do that, we're still not able to do so. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop trying. We still try to, and it's gonna at some point work a bit, and at some point maybe even really work. In the meantime, I think there are other things that can happen. Just the other day, we had a bunch of science people in the parliament. You may have read that in the news. So it was the united science community that told us what to do. And there was one thing that is really, really, really clear and the most effective. The state can open its wallet and just pay for the thing. That's the thing that works best. That having said, there's yet another option, or I'd say a complementary option. It's about culture in companies. What do we want? Do we really just want to generate more money to consume more of things that do not make us happy, that destroy the planet and the life of our kids? I mean, that can't be. And I think we have to do the three things at the same time. And that's why I think companies, if they show as an example that they can really, I mean, honestly and tangibly show that they contribute to a better world, that could be huge and it could be transformative. For us as a company, to take our example at Liip, We started after, of course, having looked at our internal impact. We know we're CO2 neutral since the beginning. So we always try to reduce to the max our CO2 emissions. We're quite low already, but there are places we can't reduce it, like heating in a building you don't own. That's really hard to change. So what we couldn't avoid emitting, we compensated, and we don't have company cars. We don't use planes because it's just not needed. And if you go to, I don't know, Berlin or Paris, the company will always pay the train ticket, and even the hours you're going to have to spend more because it's important to us to make it good. On the other hand, what we have done as a company in our projects, we always refused stuff we thought is really negative to the planet. So we never worked for a fossil fuel industry or nuclear or that kinds of things. We refused. We have a long list of stuff we didn't do because we didn't want to contribute to harming the planet. Now, and I think that's the answer that might interest you a bit more to what can we do. We started now to measure on each project we're working on the contribution, negative and positive, along the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, great.
So we come along, look at everything we do, and we say, what's that? Is that okay for water? What's about poverty? What's about climate action? What's about biodiversity? It's tough because it's not like I made this sign, so that means it's not like perfect, but it is as good as it gets. Because what do we want as a company? We want to measure our contribution to a better world, and at some point you have to generate data, knowing that they aren't perfect, knowing that you're gonna have to learn to improve, etc. Long story short, we have financial accounting. The planet knows a lot about financial accounting. We need impact accounting that comes along. And in the future, we have to always look at both, and they are equally important. That's what I'm pitching for.
I like that. And you also mentioned the different levels, right? We all have to get involved on an individual level, on the company, the entrepreneurial level, but also on a political level. And if we zoom out a bit and you think about how could we make Switzerland more startup, that could be anything, right? That could be more companies that have a positive impact. That could be more companies in general. What do you think can any individual or also organization do to make Switzerland more startup from your perspective?
I mean, Switzerland, because it's always a question of how you look at an ecosystem, because we all know, I mean, America is just awesome for, like I said, this unicorn economy. I'm not such a fan of that. And I don't think that's the thing Switzerland can replicate or should replicate, or Switzerland is different. Because if you look at all these indexes about innovation, about Nobel Prizes, about efficiency of what we can accomplish. I mean, Switzerland has an incredible standing already. So I wouldn't change that much because it's really highly effective. Yes, it's not US, it's not Silicon Valley, it's something else, but hopefully, because that makes it interesting. So I think I as a politician, but also as somebody that is convinced that things have to evolve and not too much revolt, because that I think it's okay to build an ecosystem where things become bigger, but not too fast, because things that switch too fast are not that sustainably very often. So I'd say we have already a really awesome ecosystem. What I think what Switzerland could contribute is especially what I tried to pitch before. So what about the thing beyond just financial accounting? I think Switzerland has the reputation, has the brains, has the universities, has the Werkplatz Schweiz, so has the professionals that could actually provide a big bunch to to the rest of the world, because we have to start with that somewhere. And there's a lot going on, by the way. Wouldn't be the first. There's things happening around this topic. So about how to measure impact, how to build things better and not just build things. It's not the same. So I'd say, on a very meta level, let's continue the way we do things in Switzerland, because it seems to work really, really well, even though it's completely different to other economies. But don't mess that up. But there's a big thing. It's about impact. It's about what's the contribution of economy to society, because that's why the economy exists. It's here for us, not the other way around. For us, the people. Yeah. We the people are not here for the economy. That does not make sense. And that I'm even saying as an entrepreneur, who is, of course, a man of the economy.
Absolutely. I think that shows the potential, right? We as Switzerland can actually take a leading position in that new field of focusing on impact instead of pure financial returns.
Exactly. I'd love to see that. Is Switzerland capable? Is Switzerland willing? In Bern, I often have the impression that we have a hard time having a leadership position. We are often the followers. We don't want to impose ourselves. That sometimes that's really great, because be humble. Don't stretch it too much. But I think sometimes Switzerland could be a bit more bold, could be more the champion, the leader, because we have a potential that is just incredible. And not talking about the wallet. Our wallet is just awesome, but combined with a good long history and culture. So I think Switzerland is awesome, but we should play our cards well. And in Bern, as a politician, I try to make Switzerland play the cards in a good way.
Well said. So now, of course, you also wonder, what is next for you personally? What do you want to focus on over the next few months? What's important to you there?
So are you asking for the company, or are you asking for my political...
Well, basically for you personally, which is both combined, I guess.
Okay. So that's a big question, even though you only talk about a few months. So let's maybe first talk about the company. Right now, we are in the middle of mainstreaming our own impact accounting thingy at Liip, and it's awesome. We have started with that about 1.5 years ago, and we now start to get we can grasp that thing, and we have a lot of discussion, and it's incredible to see how that can motivate people within the company. And that's something I personally profit from. It's some sort of bit of a new pioneer phase in a topic. So I personally gonna try to follow that, to contribute wherever I can, even though I don't have that much time to work for this company, for my own company, which is a bit of shame, but that's life. That's a luxury problem as a politician in Bern. So that's a really important thing to me, how Liip is gonna deal with that. Trying to figure out what's the big impact. Then I am in the Alternative Bank of Switzerland, so that's a bank that does things differently than all other banks. So it's a sustainable, ethical bank since its beginning, and there we are actually having similar questions: how to improve measurement of impact, also in order to figure out who should we boost. Who should we help to finance things? Because that's a huge and really incredible topic. So I'd say these are like the most tangible, concrete things I'm working on right now. And there's this culture startup, La Gustave, that's now 5 years old. We're gonna prepare a bit how we're gonna party this. That's really I don't want to go too much into detail, but it's a great initiative for young talents in pop music, because there's nothing like education for these kinds of profiles, and we did something here that's quite successful, and it's now active all over Switzerland, and there I work a lot on that as well, because that's really another thing. Then in politics, it's quite consuming, and there I have like 2-3 big topics. One is how to finance this energy and resource transition. So we as Switzerland, we have a huge financial sector, and we can play a very important role. And there, over the past few months, I've been working on a bigger thing together with other colleagues of parliament. So I somehow lead an initiative to create a Swiss green bank, which should enable private capital in all over the world to finance like these transition projects who still have a hard time being financed. That's the thing I'm working on. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of digital things going on. I push the idea of a federal office of cybersecurity, and the federal council even thought that might be a good idea. So I'm going to follow up on this. And there are other things in open data and stuff. But I don't want to go too much into detail. So I was very hands-on specific, but your question was more personal. I try every day to have a good life and to be able to tell myself every evening that I'm okay. I'm okay with my life, with my decisions, even though sometimes they hurt. So that's the most important, because you never know. Maybe you don't have a tomorrow. So personally, I always strive for that. Even though there's stressful times, hurtful times, beautiful times, but every day am I okay with what I'm doing? And that's the question I always want to answer to myself with a yes. And usually it works. So that's the personal goal. It's an ongoing, never-ending goal.
I love that. We also prepared some rapid fire questions for you, Gerhard, to wrap up the episode. So I either give you different options to choose from or a short question, and you have to answer in one sentence. Are you ready?
Okay.
First one, what was your summer job as a teenager?
I grew up on a farm, you can imagine.
Yeah, always working there, yeah, for sure. What are you most proud of in your life?
I think my family.
Yeah. Fribourg, Bern, or Zurich?
Fribourg, mon amour.
Wonderful. Advice to your 20-year-old self. What would you recommend to your younger self?
It's going to be fine.
I like that. Nice. And the last one for you, if you had to choose politician or entrepreneur?
I can't choose.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. You also, seem to combine both very well. And I think they're both very beneficial to each other. So I think that's a great combination.
I try actually. I try to walk the talk and to combine the things, because I'm convinced. It's not that I cherry pick opportunistic things, because that doesn't interest me. I'm interested in impact, as you have felt.
Absolutely. Gerhard, thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show. I wish you lots of success with the political, but of course also the entrepreneurial part. So all the best and lots of success for the future.
Thank you so much, Silvan. It was a great time with you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.